Welcome back to the channel, Digital Rack Gear, where we talk about digital gear for music production. Today we're going to be talking not about an effect, but about a functional piece of equipment. A piece of equipment that's found in a lot of studios, but it's not very sexy, but it's something that's definitely worth knowing about and can really save the day and help with your integration of all your equipment. This is Midi interfaces. Midi interfaces. These are separate from audio interfaces, although audio interfaces will often have a Midi in, out and through, or through. These are specific to Midi, so that you can hook up your keyboards, synthesizers, mixers, together with your digital audio interface to record Midi information and often the settings that you have in your equipment. So we're going to talk about that today on Digital Rack Gear. So there's a number of types of connector with which you can actually connect up your Midi equipment. One is the traditional 5-pin DIN connector, which looks a lot like that. And the other is via USB. Midi is a serial type of connection, and we'd use one of these type of connectors. And that's getting quite commonplace on synthesizers in particular, and also Midi interfaces themselves. So we're going to have a look at some Midi interfaces, and if you're shopping for a Midi interface, the kinds of things you want to look out for, especially on the second-hand market, but we're also going to look at some newer equipment, which is, I guess, more cutting edge, and is going to add a lot of functionality if you have a pretty extensive Midi rig, keyboard rig, effects, and so on. So basically, back in the day when people had racks of musical equipment and racks of synthesizer modules, Midi was actually quite important for transmitting what note was supposed to be played, the velocity, the modulation that was to be employed, note on, note off messages, right? And this is a pretty standard piece of equipment from that time, made by Opcode. It has a number of funky features about it. It will cater for SMPTE, SMPTE timecode, and it is actually specific. It has some functionality specific for a Mac at the time, which those who remember very old Macintoshes had their own Mac network type cable. So I'll show you that now. So this is the back of the unit, and you'll notice that there, for connecting with a computer, RS-32, or it's a particular type of connection, which is again a series type of connection. There's your Mac specific connector, SMPTE, and then here are the standard 5-pin DIN sockets, and that's basically all it is, other than the power. So this is basically specifically to look after Midi transmission to and from a computer and between pieces of equipment. And on the front, you'll see there are a variety of buttons which tell you where the Midi signals are and where they're going, so the to and from, which is pretty handy to be able to see on the front of a piece of equipment. Now this is quite old now, but it is still supported. I use it in my studio. But I don't actually have it directly hooked up to a computer. The reason is because this type of connector here, this type of serial connector, is not commonplace at all. It used to be used, I think, for printers and that sort of thing. And if you're looking at this kind of interface, understand that this is not going to be easily connected to your computer. It's probably better for transmission between, say, a Midi keyboard and a number of modules, and have some other way of getting your signal from your keyboard into the computer. I use it in a particular way that it hangs off another Midi interface. So I have one Midi in and out going into this, and then this speaks to a variety of other pieces of Midi equipment, and that's how I use it. And each one has its own Midi channel. So Midi has channels 1 to 16, and each one of these will be assigned a different channel number. And that way, a piece of equipment is only talking to one other piece of equipment if I want. So I've got control that way, but it's not direct to the computer. So there we are. That's something to look out for. If you're buying a second-hand piece of equipment which does Midi, make sure it's got a modern-day connector like a USB connection, not one of these old series type. A similarly old piece of equipment is this Mark of the Unicorn Midi timepiece. Now, they came out with a variety of versions of this, and it's a great piece of equipment, and it's still current today because it has USB on the back. Pretty early version of USB, I guess, but it works. So, and it's still supported. Mark of the Unicorn still in business, still supporting this product, which was at the time really a breakthrough piece of gear because it caters for a lot of different use cases. It has 8 in, 8 out. It's actually still got the Mac RS422 standard. It also has a number of ways to sync this up with other pieces of equipment, particularly video. So this was the Mark of the Unicorn Midi timepiece AV, so made for companies who were doing stuff between video and audio. It'll work for audio by itself, and that's fine, and it works really, really well. I love it. It's vintage, but it still works. Who can't love that? So that's the Midi timepiece AV from Mark of the Unicorn. Still worthwhile. It does come with a version without USB. Look out for that because they're not going to be as useful to you, especially when interfacing with your computer. Look out for the one with the USB. So times go by and synthesizers actually become less popular, drum machines and the like, and everyone's doing everything in the box. So this is pre the current heyday where we've got a lot of analog gear with MIDI, and music's really sort of stepped up in the last 10, 15 years, but there was some dark ages there, and for a while Roland, with their Edroll brand, was one of the few companies actually making MIDI interfaces. So this is an example of that, the UM550. I think they had an 880 maybe as well. So this has got 5 in, 5 out. It is MIDI, so this will plug direct into your computer. There are still drivers for it. I use it on Windows 7. Each individual in and out comes up on your door, and it's pretty seamless. It works beautifully. Interface wise, it's not that great. There's no handy buttons which tell you which signal's going which way. You've got some click buttons. I find the interface is a little bit not quite as dynamic, I guess is the best word, but it's definitely functional. A pretty useful piece of equipment. I like it. It does the job. It's functional, not exciting. What is exciting is this next piece of equipment, and this is really a very modern MIDI specific interface. It's made by iConnectivity, and they're a relatively new company. The Myo 10 is a piece of equipment that I've got. It really has revolutionized the way I use MIDI in my studio and how I'm able to connect pieces of equipment. Myo 10 is a couple of years old now, but it is quite a new company and it's quite a new product. And what this product does is it allows you to send MIDI information over network, i.e. a LAN cable. And that enables you to overcome one of the inherent limitations of MIDI. And that is, it's digital information carried via voltage, which means it's subject to impedance of the actual length of the cable. The longer the cable, the weaker the signal is going to be, and the more likely you're going to have a delay between when you press your keyboard and when the module receives it, and the signal breaking down. So having the signal transferred over LAN means that you can travel a lot further distances, have your signals intact as well. Myo 10's definitely revolutionized the way I have my studio set up, and by my equipment in my live room works with the actual control room. It's a fantastic solution. If you're looking at a modern interface, there's 10 or 11 or more 10 outs, 10 ins and outs, I think. This is definitely a great option. It does have standard DIN connections and USB and obviously LAN cable. The Myo XL expands on this slightly with more MIDI over USB, and I think it might have 2 LAN ports, but I'll show you a picture of those up on the screen now and you can have a look at that spec. So if you're looking at a new piece of equipment, the iConnectivity and the very modern interfaces are definitely worth a look, and if you're looking at transferring MIDI data over a distance, definitely look at the connectivity over LAN cable. It's a bit of a game changer. Usually I have my opcode piece of equipment here that takes one of the ins and outs out of this Myo 10. And the Myo 10 does have actually a very nice interface. These are touch controls on the front, which are fantastic. These do light up when the MIDI signals are going through any of the channels. It's got a lot of connections on the back. I'm not sure if you can see how many I've got at the back there, but there's plenty there. Plus ins and outs on the front, which I use for a mobile keyboard rig. And then you've also got USB on the front and back. And this is handy for plugging in iPads and the like. So that iPads can connect as can multiple computers. I've only connected it to one, so I can only attest to the connectivity over LAN, which works extremely well. I'm very satisfied with it. It connects into my DAW, which is Cubase, seamlessly. Beautiful. So I hope that was helpful, giving you some of the currently available secondhand and new products which are functional in the digital rack gear realm. These are not terribly exciting, certainly from an effects perspective, but they're incredibly helpful from a day-to-day use. And if they work well, they can remove a huge amount of headaches. If they don't work well, they can be a huge headache in their own right. So please do post your experiences of these products in the comments below. And thanks for making the time to watch this video. I look forward to seeing you again soon on Digital Rack Gear.